Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's meeting. I'm Dennis Reardon, president of Montuck Audubon Society, and this should be a fun evening. Montuck wishes to honor the indigenous communities native to the chapter area, including the Pagusset, Wepawag, Quinnipiac, Tataka, Montuck, and Hammonasset people. As we advocate for the conservation of the land and its wildlife, we're indebted to the work of native and indigenous people who cherished the land for thousands of years before European colonization. I want to draw your attention to some upcoming events. Saturday, February 10th, we have our Eagle Watch at Chippewa Dam. There are two sessions at 9 and 11. You can sign up at the website. The following Tuesday, February 13th at 7 on Zoom, old friend Gina Nickel will be here talking about flockology, unraveling the mysteries of bird flocks. Then Friday of that week, February 16th, also at 7 o'clock, our Lights Out program will be having a winter gala at the community center in Orange. There's information about that on the website. The next day, we're doing great backyard bird count in 3 parks in New Haven at different times. So again, check the website. And then on February 21st, Rob LaFrance, Audubon's policy manager, will be joining us on Zoom to highlight the 2024 legislative priorities, which include bills to ban neonics in some fashion and do something about rodenticides that are killing raptors. And with that, let me share my screen again and we'll get started. Here we go. And here we don't go. Let's try this again. Let's try this again. Here we go. And oh, can't do it that way. I think I'd be better at this after all this time, huh? All right, here we go. So we're going to start with a quiz. Size them up. Order these 6 shorebirds from smallest to largest. Give you a few minutes to work on this. Frank Mantlick, do you have anything interesting to say about these birds?
The shorebirds.
Yeah.
Well, I put them in order that I think is correct, but um, other than that,
Got a favorite?
um, well, I do work with piping plovers. I'm one of the monitors, so uh, I'm definitely I'm a fan of piping plover, but also oyster catcher. Oyster catchers with that carrot for a beak is a bird that's hard to not like.
I'm with you on that.
The those species, oyster catchers, aren't in the state. They're in the winter generally, nor are piping plovers or willets. But sanderlings are, and occasionally killdeer and ruddy turnstone can winter, but most leave the state in the fall. Um,
Yeah, the killdeer, you'll see the odd one here and there.
the other species not on there, that a shorebird that does winter commonly with us is dunlin.
Almost put that on.
I saw a lot of American oyster catchers flocking up on the south side of some of the islands off of Norwalk, or in the fall. I had never seen so many in one place, so I guess it's something they just do in fall. Could you comment on that, Frank?
Yeah, they after the breeding season, they'll stage in certain areas before migrating. It's commonly seen through late summer and fall, places like Milford Point, where whether they were successful nesting or not, it's not uncommon to see like 90 oyster catchers or more
Wow.
in like September, October. Um,
So my count, I always submit to eBird. My count didn't get flagged, so I'm guessing
oh,
it was within, the range.
yeah. Do you recall how many it was, Michelle?
No, I don't. I'd have to go back and look. I didn't know he was going to put this slide up, but I'm out on a kayak year
Yeah.
round, so
Yeah.
I always.
Was that at Kakini or another island?
No, another. It was I believe it was the south side of Sheffield.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so you would not see that from the shore. There's no
Right,
way you
right.
would see that from the shore.
Another place I've seen large staging numbers of oyster catchers is out on Bluff Point, out in Groton. Um, but I think they like Milford Point because the mouth of the Housatonic is just rich with shellfish beds and marine worms and things, and they can feed there for a long time and then head on.
It does make sense. There's an awful lot of good resources at the mouth of the Saugatuck, even though it's a much smaller river, but there's a lot of invertebrates there, marine invertebrates.
Okay, thanks, Frank. And we'll come back to the answers after Donna does her talk.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. So I put together a group of photos that they're not exactly my best, but there's some favorites, and I had put in a few that for reasons, because I've been working on trying to get more bird friendly plants, native plants into my yard, and just to show how offering a good habitat really is good for them. So I kind of put these in order through the season. So this is early spring, and this is actually a peach tree. And I don't think female red-winged blackbirds get enough love. And I just really liked her, and she posed very nicely. And next.
Would you mention the plants if you know the names?
I will. That first one was a peach tree that was just starting to bloom in spring. And this is a red maple, I do believe. Um, unfortunately, I did have to take this tree down. It was in the front of my house, and um, through the hurricanes that we had over the last several years, it had become very compromised, and it was actually a good thing. We found out later it was very ill. But this is a male rose-breasted grosbeak up in the tree, and he was hanging out waiting his turn to get to my bird feeders.
Is that this year?
This was a couple of years ago.
Because I didn't see any this year, but I just found out that they come from Ecuador.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
Yeah, they migrate from the Amazon.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I only had one or two last year, and the previous year I had about a dozen.
Yes, I found the same thing. Mhm.
Interesting.
And I found them in my blueberry bushes.
Oh wow. I got to get a couple more of those in there. I have a couple of little ones that have not been thriving, so I'm going to try to set up another area and get the blueberry bushes in there.
I have 9 plants on a quarter acre, and
Oh.
when you plant enough, the birds come and they keep the other birds away. The catbird that you're just showing keeps the other birds away. So I actually got to eat some this year myself.
I don't worry about. I figure I could go over to Bishop's and buy my blueberries, but you know, I everything I plant I try to do strictly for the birds. So again, this is a catbird, and just using my own area. You know, sometimes I can't always get out, or you know, and I can't travel necessarily, so just kind of hanging out in the backyard. And this is I believe early summer, and this is a tangle of not so nice plants that I do need to get removed, and you know, working on cleaning out invasives. So this is a tangle of some invasive plants that, but the catbirds unfortunately do like it. They have nested in that tangle successfully. I've had anywhere up to 4 pairs of birds working my yard, and I like their personality. They're bold little friends.
They are amazing. Whenever I mow my lawn, the catbird comes out to pluck the moths that get stirred up.
Yeah.
I don't mow very often anymore, so he's in trouble.
Yeah. And next, and in the summer again, this was a few years back. I was so excited. I had my first brown thrasher, and actually there was a pair. I don't know if they nested. I did watch some behavior where they were collecting materials, but I never saw if they were actually nesting in the area. But this year I had come home from a birding outing, and luckily had my camera with me, and I just sat in the car and just watched. This bird was maybe about 20 feet away from me, and you know, I just stayed still in the car just with the window down, and this bird obliged me with some nice photos.
Cars do make good blinds.
Yes. There have been times I've just sat out there for hours just waiting. And this is actually through my basement window. I put my lens out my basement window and was watching under my feeders, and had this little indigo bunting male that was coming. This is one that I don't get all that often. You know, one will pop up, you know, every few years or so. This one here hung around for a little while, and I was able to get some nice shots of him just looking out the window. And this here is one of my favorite woodpeckers. I just love the flickers, those golden colors on them. And next. And in the summertime, I've really been excited to have Baltimore Orioles, and they, you know, they do come in for the jelly, and I am trying to get some more native plants in, and I will put out orange halves. I believe this is a mulberry bush that had self-seeded itself somehow into my yard. And I was trying to read up on it, and I guess we have a native mulberry. Maybe somebody can comment on that.
Red mulberry is native, but it almost never grows. What's coming in your yard
Is
and
that the-
berry is white mulberry, and
Okay.
it seeds very redly. They're all-
Yes.
them all over.
I think
In
I
a
have,
quarter acre, I might have 4 seedlings,
oh
coming
goodness.
per year.
And that's one of those, it's like, do you take it down? Do you not take it
You
down?
do take, yeah, I take them down because they're not native, and I want to put the natives instead. So
Yeah. What's it all, can you get the red mulberry, the native?
I haven't tried to because I have this my neighbor has a big one in the backyard and the birds love it. I see cedar waxwings there. So I'm letting the neighbor do the heavy lifting on that species.
Yeah, mulberry can be kind of messy too.
I don't mind about the mess. I just want to bring the birds in.
I'll see if
Yes,
I can,
elderberry's great, and
I'll
it's
see if I can get some mulberry at the nursery.
red
Okay.
mulberry. Yes.
Okay, great.
Red, yeah.
Yeah, I'd be a customer for that too, Dennis.
I had an Oriole pair that nested not in my yard, but in I think a couple houses down. They came and I had put some cat fur out for nesting material. They came and took that and used it.
Oh, wow.
It was weird seeing a female Oriole on my back porch plucking cat fur.
And this here was a successful season. This was again, I think a couple of years back. And this is the male Oriole feeding a fledgling some of the jelly. And I know there's a big thing about probably better options instead of jelly, but I'm living and learning as they go. And I
But
just,
it brought them in. And what was it? Grape jelly or do you have
yep, just the regular old grape jelly. I know I would buy 6 jars at the grocery store, and a lady would look at me like, "What are you doing?" And this was taken last year. This is another season, and the Orioles again fledged. I'm not sure how many pairs. There were at least 2 pairs that I am aware of, and I've had a number of them in past years coming.
Donna, how do you what kind of camera do you use? Because they're way high up in the tree, aren't they usually 40 feet up?
Well, again, I'm kind of strategically placing myself in the yard, and like I'll sit like under my peach tree, so I'm a little bit camouflaged near where my feeding stations are. So I just kind of sit there, and as long as you're quiet and you don't move a whole lot, the birds don't pay a whole lot of attention to you, although the Orioles are very skittish. But I have a this here I think was taken with my new, I just changed over to the new mirrorless camera system, and this is a 100 to 500 millimeter lens at 500. And of course the hummingbird. Again, just kind of staking out different areas in my yard. So my hummingbird feeders are very active. I'll have at least one, maybe 2 adults that will be in the area. Last year I had 2 males for the first time that were buzzing the hummingbird feeders, and just hanging out close by and not moving around a whole lot. It's like they almost like think you're just part of the environment, as long as you're not, waving your arms around and doing crazy stuff. This hummer I was able to catch just launching off of the feeder and hovering, and with a really fast shutter speed, I was almost able to totally freeze those wings. I'm still working on my flight photography, but
I would mention 2 plants that I've had very good success with. Cardinal flower
yep.
brings them in, and then in the fall, Impatiens pallida.
Oh,
Touch me not, pale touch me not.
Okay.
wild, but I leave a big patch of it in my backyard and they come for the nectar in September, October.
Yeah, I'm in the process of redoing my pollinator garden because I had a really bad couple of years, so I haven't been gardening as carefully as I should have, and I got mugwort in there, and it's been taken
Oh,
over
Lord.
by what do you call it, goldenrod, which I love in the fall because it brings in the butterflies that are migrating, the monarchs. But I'm kind of in the process now of like collapsing it all down, and I'm gonna have to restart it. So Dennis, I will be looking for some cardinal flower.
Yeah, and different goldenrods will suppress the mugwort eventually.
Yeah, I have one little section that's the mugwort and the rest is goldenrod, and I'm like, okay, but it's like taking over. I because I did have cardinal flower, and I had what's lobelia that they liked.
Lobelia syphilitica, the blue one,
The blue one, yep, yep.
syphilitica. Mhm.
But fun little birds. This isn't the most glamorous photo in the world, but I do really enjoy watching the grackles. And this was in the summer, and the sun just hitting this bird just right. And just look at all the colors in this bird. They're just, to me, they're pretty.
It is stunning, the colors.
Yeah, and this is at a water bath. So again, providing food and shelter and water are definite draws for wildlife. And again, another little water station. This is a tub I had put out, and I have some rocks in there. And this, I believe it's a female Cooper's hawk, big girl that came in, and it was a very hot. This is one of the summers where we had some really, really hot periods of time. So she came in and she drank for quite a while, and I was just hanging out my bathroom window again with the cameras and use your house as a blind too. And she just stayed there for a good, I want to say a good half an hour. And I do have some birdhouses out, and this is a little chickadee, and I'm not sure what the prey item is, but I was feeding nestlings.
Donna, on your chickadee house, did you get one that's sized for a chickadee, or is this a generic hole sized hole that the chickadee's doing okay?
That was it is a chickadee house. I'm trying to remember where I got it from. That's like my very first birdhouse that I ever bought. And it's got the hole is just small enough. I have had house wren in there. They seem to change off if it's not the chickadees in there, it's the house wrens.
They're tiny too.
Yeah, but I've had problems with the house sparrows. So I do have some other bird houses that are out, and I did go buy the plates to put over to size them down for the smaller birds, and that the house sparrows cannot get in. And not a great photo, but just showing how having a wildlife friendly yard, this chickadee was quite successful picking up some caterpillars to bring back to the nest.
I think that is a great photo, Donna. Because you can see the bird very clearly, and the prey. That's a real mouthful. I never knew they would collect like 3 at once. That's an excellent photo.
I was shocked. I was just so shocked watching this little guy. I was actually, this was a mimosa tree that I did take down after learning that they are terribly invasive.
And didn't Doug Talamy say they need like 6,000 caterpillars to raise a food?
It's a crazy amount, and it might. And again, my yard is pesticide free. I do not use any kind of chemicals, and any gardening I do is totally organic. So I don't kill anything. I don't want anything killed, and I don't put anything on the lawn. So my lawn is just a it's not grass.
How big is your property? Because I've got a 1/4 acre and I'm sure I get drift from my neighbors.
Yeah, that's all I have too, and I think I'm just under, just over that there. I have to look, but I do have woods in the back, and yes, I have one neighbor that is notorious for putting out every kind of chemical on his lawn possible, and it really annoys me to no end. And I've tried to talk to them, but they want their perfect green lawn, which is upsetting.
It's amazing how the birds can grasp more than one prey item at a time. As you know, those weren't right next to each other and he picked them all up at once.
Oh yeah,
It was one at a time, and it's like, how did he do that without dropping them?
I don't know. I was just shocked. I just happened to look up and there he was, and I grabbed a shot, and I was like, when I looked at it later, I'm going, he's got more than one in his beak there.
Dennis, we're going to have to scour YouTube and see if we can find a video of how the birds pick up, several at once without dropping. That's a really interesting point.
I agree with you too, that I think it's a good shot with all that prey in its beak.
And this is another little house. This one here I did get at the Audubon shop. I can tell you that much. This is a little wren box, and there's 2 little baby wrens in there. And I have this here. This was in my pollinator garden, and it's kind of tucked in. I have plants that were growing up around it. There's a little, I think that's one of my asters on the lower right corner there, peeking up. But it's being that it's being provided cover too. They've been very successful in this box as well. And this is a male goldfinch. This is getting into fall, and I would put out, actually, this is in the pollinator garden. Take that back, sorry. You can see in the lower right, that is a cut leaf coneflower that I had growing. And Dennis, I'm going to need more of that too.
Good.
That was a great plant. They love the seeds from that plant. And I know I got some finches in there as well that would pick at the seeds for those, but this is on one of the I believe one of the thistles, the thorny plant, and they were picking the seeds. Yeah, they were pulling the seeds off of that as well. And I noticed too, they like the fuzz from it. They would pull the fuzz out and use that for.
Well, the seed is attached to the fuzz, so.
Okay.
And the other thing I want to say is cutleaf coneflower, sorry, Dennis, it self-sows very readily.
Yes, it does.
You don't need to buy any more. If you just leave the ground around the plant you have, you're going to have 6 or 8 next year.
Yes, I ended up having to share a bunch of them, but then again, like I mentioned, that with the mugwort and the goldenrod, it's kind of crowded everybody out. So I've lost. I may have one cutleaf coneflower left. I did. That actually ended up taking over my garden when I originally put it in. I had one stand of it, and then it self-sowed, and I ended up giving plants away. But I should have probably kept a couple more for myself. But a great plant, love it. And this here is a native tree. I believe it's a black tupelo, if I have the name correct. And you can see
that's not a chokeberry, a red chokeberry.
No, it's a
Okay.
tree.
It's a tupelo. Okay, cool.
I believe that's the name of it. It has these nice little green glossy leaves on it, and in the fall it develops these little berries. You could see one in the middle on the left hand side hanging down. And this tree is like a hot spot in my yard. At when those berries are ripened, and this is a younger robin, and I just kind of hung out near the tree and just was watching them, and I just happened to catch this robin dropping out of that branch to go to a lower branch and was able to catch this image. But I have gotten cedar waxwing with this tree. One year I had a dozen flickers, harvesting berries off of it. I've had red-eyed vireos. I know a lot of warblers like to go in it because of the insect activity that would be in there. What else did I have? I had a pileated woodpecker pair. It's really, it's an just this one tree. Just amazing.
It's very salt tolerant, which is a good thing if you're at all near the coast. I planted a bunch of them, over a dozen of them at Sherwood Island State Park, and they're doing very well.
Oh, nice. And this is bordering my property, my other neighbor, and I have a stand of arborvitaes, and with some of the trees that had come down, instead of having them hauled away, I had them cut up into pieces, and I laid them out, kind of made like a little border, and it's been a nice little spot for small animals, and chipmunks and small birds, and this I believe is a little sharp-shinned hawk that would sit on the chunks of wood and just kind of hang out and look around and
stare at you.
and this is from my basement window, and just, yeah, he just was sitting there looking, and I just happened to get him looking in my direction, but it was just, and he was there for about a half an hour just checking things out, and he did eventually go and get a house sparrow, so I was like, yay, bird. And this here is a young Cooper's hawk, and this was in a little mimosa, and again, it's one of those naughty plants that I learned about. So this one is in the process of coming down as well. This is one that's stowed from my original one. But just having some limbs, and this bird sat up in the tree, and I just sat by my car, and I put my lens up over the hood, and the bird was maybe about 15 feet away. So I got this nice little portrait of this young Cooper's.
You know what it was looking at?
It had just finished eating. I'm not sure what it was eating.
Does have that look too.
Yeah, I pretty much devoured whatever. I didn't leave much behind, so it had gone up there. I noticed it after it was already in the process of eating, so I didn't want to bother it. I waited until it finished, and then I crept myself out there very carefully and just stood behind my car and used the car to block me, and I put my lens up over the hood and took pictures. Nice thing about digital, you can bring those LCD screens and tilt them so you can kind of see without them seeing you. And I was graced one summer with this summer tanager, and really, really cool to see. This one here, like the suet that I had out, and it stayed, I want to say, for about a week, and I had a whole bunch of folks that were coming down to check this bird out. So always keep your eyes open. And I just feel like, if you have a bird friendly yard, you never know what's going to show up.
What town are you in, Donna?
I'm in Brantford. And this is getting into winter, and I have a pair of Carolina wrens that are always hanging around. And this is out my side window. I have a little, it's either a hickory or oak, not sure which species of tree. It is a native tree though. He would just sit on this little twig and sing his little fool heart out, and I just enjoyed watching him. They're quite the character as well. They're a fun bird. Little bird, big voice. And lastly, in the winter, my flickers. I just love them. Of course, with the snow on the ground, again, this is going back several years. This particular
Obviously.
image. Yeah, I know. What snow? So this, I just happened to catch this one here, giving me the old stink eye. And I'm not sure if that was the last one. Nope. Okay. Well, this was a surprise to see, and just happened to catch this guy, and I like the image just because he's against a tree, and if you look quick, you're gonna miss him. So barred owl, and I do believe there is a pair in the area. Have heard them out talking to each other, and I do know one year that they had some youngsters. I don't know where specifically, but Lori Shaw had come down to drop off some things to me, and she said as her husband was driving out, he happened to see them up in a tree around the bend from me.
Donna, thank you so much. Fascinating. Great photos.
So you don't have to go far. That was kind of the whole point, is, you know, just observing what's in your own backyard and creating that kind of environment for them. But thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, here we go. Here are the answers to the size them up. How'd you do, folks? 6 for 6?
Yeah, I had Ruddy Turnstone and Sanderling reversed.
I did the same thing.
That seems too big to me for a Sanderling, 10 inches.
These are Sibley's sizes. All right, this is a little different. Bird names are hidden in these sentences.
Mute swan in the third sentence?
Could be.
Merlin in the second sentence.
Mallard in the last.
Maybe some type of
Well, we'll come back to these. And Monica. Ready? Monica, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
I think she said she was having some trouble with her video. I'll text her now.
If she wants to join by phone, that might work.
All right, she's gonna try to get on by her phone.
Okay, good.
And she said that the cover photo, cover photo is not one she sent to you.
No, I
Just-
know that.
Oh, that's from somebody else?
No, it's hers, but it's not one that she sent to me.
Ah, okay.
Here's the first of those.
Yeah. She has to download Zoom, so do you want to go on and come back to her in a few minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll go to the. There we go. There are the hidden birds. Anybody get the raven and the redhead?
I got the redhead, Dennis.
Okay.
Me too.
What do you think of this kind of quiz question? Nothing, I guess, huh?
And it, you know, it's a word, it doesn't teach us much.
No, but it requires you to kind of unscramble things and find birds. But here's the next one. So we got close-ups of some birds. And they're real close-up, like that red-bellied woodpecker. So here's the first one.
Goldfinch.
Grackle,
Mhm.
Ruddy turnstone.
good guess.
We'll find out shortly.
Dennis, Monica said she's on.
Ah. All right. let's go through the rest of these. We'll go back to Monica and then we will get the answers to these.
You could go a little faster on these.
Yeah.
Red-winged blackbird.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yep.
That looks like an oyster catcher.
Catcher, yes. Sandpiper.
Woodcock.
Agree with Frank. That's a white-throated sparrow.
Okay, we'll go. Get out of that and go back to Monica.
All right,
right,
can everyone hear
Monica,
me?
we can hear you. Yes, good.
Yay. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
It's happened many times.
Okay, let me.
Log off your computer.
Yeah, I'm turning off my computer so I can actually.
Yeah.
All right, there we go.
There we go.
So thank you for having me on tonight. I'm looking forward to sharing about my latest adventure, which was to Texas in September of last year. This is the photo of me on the right, and my birding friend that lives in Texas. We ended up crossing over to Mexico, so I had to take a picture of riding a donkey in Mexico, just to say I did. So that's the story behind that one. This was my first live for the trip. So we started off in the Davis Mountains and the western part of Texas. This is a scaled quail. There was probably 40 or 50 of them along one of the lakes that we stopped at. And I just love the feather patterns on this bird. So it was nice. It was a nice way to start off the trip. This is a greater earless lizard. So these photos are in no particular order. This one was taken in Big Bend National Park. And if you can see the details, part of the body is green and orange with spotting. It was a very beautiful lizard. So I had to stop and take some photos of that guy. There were lots and lots of lizards and reptiles out there. So it added a lot of excitement to the trip.
This was all in the Rio Grande Valley?
This was in Big Bend. This was in Big Bend National Park. We had gone down to chase a couple of black-tailed gnatcatchers. There's a very small part of the park that they're found in, and we were chasing the gnatcatcher, and this guy came up right in front of my feet. So I had to take some photos of him. And one of the coolest birds out there, the greater roadrunner, with actually the first time I've ever seen a giant stick insect, if you can see it in its beak. So these guys were actually really tame. This was also in Big Bend, and they were actually on the trail right in front of us. It was an older one and a recently fledged one that was begging. So it was really cool to see them interacting and doing the wing fluttering displays. Really such a stunning bird.
Was there any Acme dynamite around?
Ha ha, funny. I didn't see any, but I really liked the mood of this one. It's not my typical photo, but this was an acorn woodpecker taken at dusk, and you can't see details of the bird, but I just love the silhouette of it in one of the dead trees that was up on the top of the mountain. Alrighty. This is a Gambel's quail. They're very limited they have very limited range in Texas, so we were lucky to even see them. This is a male with that fancy hairdo. But it was a nice treat to see these guys, as we missed out on the Montezuma quail, which was one of my targets. But this was a nice makeup for that. So this was fence lizard, I think, Western fence lizard. And see how he's displaying his little frill there. We had a whole bunch of these guys around, but I loved catching the orange popping. Alrighty. This is a plain chacalaca baby. Chachalaca. I can never say that word right. This was taken down in the Rio Grande Valley. It was just so cute to seeing the babies run around. They're actually very, very loud birds too, so you can't miss them. We also had some older fledglings there too. I was actually surprised to see babies so late in the season, but so cute. And this was an even bigger surprise for me. We didn't plan this at all. We were actually chasing a golden crowned warbler down in the Rio Grande Valley. We did get that a few days later, but these are Texas tortoises. They're listed as endangered or threatened in Texas. And if you can see that stick kind of hanging out at the front of the back of the front turtle, that's actually a tracker monitor that they have on them. So they're actually keeping track of how these tortoises are doing. So neither of us had expected to run into these, but
This?
no, to the tortoise in the front to the left.
Oh,
There's like, yeah, that long stick hanging out from the back.
oh, here.
So there's the monitor. The monitor is actually on the back of that tortoise. That's like the antenna or something. But
Okay.
we saw a few of those. It was nice to see. One of the highlights, I think, of the trip was visiting South Padre Island in Rio Grande Valley. The marshes and stuff are just stunning down there. So this is an adult tricolored heron. It was just perched out in the open on top of, I guess they're mangroves down there, but he was very, very accommodating. So I just love the bokeh in the background of that one. Oh my God, this is a bird I've been chasing for several years now. So black terns are rare. Well, I wouldn't say rare, but they're like sporadic up here. Down in Texas, I mean, people have been reporting 50 to 100 of them every day. Finally got my lifer. So I was really thrilled. There was several of these guys down on the beach. So it was really nice to finally get a bird that I've been targeting. They're actually really, really small too. I was very surprised. Even compared to like a sandwich tern, they're tiny. But I just love the colorings and the markings on them. And I was very, very surprised to see how many royal terns there were down there. I mean, there are at least 50 to 100 just on this one mud flat. And so I was trying to take a whole bunch of group shots as they all took off. Because when the gulls came through, they all got flushed. But this one came out nice, and some of them are more in focus than others, which shows a greater depth of field. But I was really happy with how these came out. Okay, forgive me if I get this name wrong. I think this was the red-fronted parrot. It's definitely a parrot, don't get me wrong, but we had 3 different species of parrots on this trip. This is I think this is the red-fronted. But if you think the monk parakeets that we have are loud, there were probably hundreds, if not thousands, of parrots in this one area. So it was like mind-blowing. It was mind-blowing how many there were. And this was right at the edge of dark, so it was like really had to boost my exposure and stuff, but this one came out pretty nice and shows the beautiful red and blue on the head. So it was a beautiful bird. So green jays are probably one of the most wanted species that people go down to Texas to see, and you can see why. So that this is an immature male. um, green jay on the right, and then a young plain chakalaka on the left. So a lot of these state parks and stuff have water holes out for the birds because it gets so hot down there. So we just sat at several of the water holes and just let the birds come to us, which was really nice. They came down really nice and close, and they didn't mind us at all. So it was really nice to get some just really close-ups of them.
I love those green jays. They're so,
I do. They're very loud, but they're very there's no other bird like them. There really isn't. I was really excited about that. Oh, the little cutie. Okay, so this is a Mexican 9-spotted Mexican ground squirrel. We had a couple of ground squirrels species during my trip, but this guy definitely takes the cake for the cuteness, I think. It's almost like a chipmunk and a gray squirrel had a baby. They were very tiny too, so it was cute to see them running around. Oh, probably one of the most exciting parts of the trip was seeing some common Paracas. So I'd gotten this bird in Brazil in 2022, but seeing them on the ground during the day was just a whole another mind-blowing experience. So we had seen them a couple days earlier in a different part of the Rio Grande, but we're at this spot chasing down some buff-bellied hummingbirds and the warbler I'd mentioned earlier. And I was looking down into the brush because I had seen movement and I thought I saw a hummingbird go down. And then what do I find? This guy sitting on the ground. To find this one on my own was kind of really a big hurrah moment for me. It was like, wow. And he just sat there for 15 or 20 minutes. We walked around the park and came back and he was still sitting there. So it was really cool to see how chill he was. So this is a buff-bellied hummingbird. See that where the name comes from, the down on the belly. Such a beautiful bird. I can't really express how in awe I was of this bird's multicolored patterns. Just really a remarkable bird. I call this one the dorky tail boy. This is a scissor-tailed flycatcher, and it was I don't know if it's a young one or if it was molting, but when I was taking the pictures, I noticed he had just had that one long tail feather. Usually there's two of them, which is how they get their name. But this was one of the species I really wanted when I went down to Texas, and they didn't let me down. So this one let me get really close to it, and got some nice looks at the orange wash on the belly. And someone told me that the ones with the orange on their belly and under the armpits are actually males. So I'm guessing this one's a male, but beautiful birds all the same. Okay, I always mix these two up. This is a Western grebe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is the Western. So one of the first stops we made when I by the Davis Mountains was to this lake called Damoria Lake. And this place is known for Western grebes, Clark's grebes, and that's where I got the scaled quail. And so I got both of those. And what was really cool is I actually got to see the Western grebes displaying. Now I thought that would only be early in the spring when they're mating, but to see the birds actually running on the water and doing their fancy head and neck displays was just really amazing. I'm happy to share that video with anybody who wants to see it. But it was just a remarkable total surprise of that whole entire trip. And the birds came in fairly close too, which was nice. This is a rock wren. This was taken up on the very top of the Davis Mountains. We had gone up there to catch the sunset because apparently the sunsets are really beautiful up there. And this guy just came right up next to me. I mean, he wasn't afraid of anything. I was probably 5 feet away and he just sat there and let me take some shots off, and definitely a very personable bird. and very unlike the wrens that we have here. So it was a nice treat. This is a black-tailed rattlesnake. So I had some expectations for other wildlife when I went out to Texas. And one of my hopes was to get my first rattlesnake. So this was in the Davis Mountains. So the thing with looking for snakes and stuff out here is you can't go on just any road and look for snakes at night, because a lot of people go out there illegally to poach them. So there's only only state parks you can do that. So we drove around the state park that night and got lucky and found this beauty on the road. Well, eventually we had to coach it off, but it was very not aggressive at all, and it was a very good experience for my first rattlesnake. Okay, this is a canyon towhee. Kind of think of him as the song sparrow of Connecticut. They were literally everywhere in our campground. I mean, I counted probably 5 or 10 in one spot in our campground. Very cute little birds though. Very tame and friendly. Alrighty. Oh, one of the coolest birds. This was one of the ones that I was definitely targeting when I went out there. So actually what I witnessed was more than one woodpecker will use the same tree, or in this case, telephone pole, to hoard their acorns, which is kind of not what we're used to out here. Most woodpeckers prefer to be solitary out here. These guys actually seem to work together and share the food supply. So it was really cool to see them digging holes out of the pole and then finding it, flying out, getting an acorn, and then flying back and then hammering them into the pole. And you can see all the acorns that this one has already stashed. So that was really amazing to witness. Well, this is a Lucifer hummingbird. Texas, I think, has some of the most beautiful hummingbirds you'll ever see. Down just south of the Davis Mountains, there's a place called the Christmas Tree Resort. It's run by this woman, Carolyn. She has set up like a little oasis down there with watering holes and stuff. And the public can actually go there, but we do recommend donating to her, because she keeps feeding these birds and providing water for them. But we probably had 10 or 15 Lucifer hummingbirds just coming to the feeders here. And this is a bright, gorgeous male that just perched nicely on one of the native trees down there. So definitely one of the most beautiful hummingbirds I've ever seen. And that's it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me tonight. That was nice.
And we will go to the answers here. So somebody said goldfinch. Any other suggestions here? Goldfinch it is. This should look familiar, actually, because we saw one earlier that almost looked exactly like that. Common grackle. I think somebody said turnstone.
Yeah, I agree with Ruddy Turnstone.
Yep.
I love seeing these guys.
Didn't get anything for this.
Is that a puffin?
It is a puffin. Red wing. And yes, it's an oyster catcher. I think Frank said woodcock. Yes, indeed. I think Michelle said white-throated sparrow. Indeed. And that's it.
Oh, Dennis, you had asked me to share what I used for camera equipment and I totally forgot until
yes.
now. So my main camera, is the Canon Rebel T8i, and then I use a Tamron 150 to 600 mil for my lens.
All right, thank you. Anybody else have any comments or questions of our speakers?
Dennis, when is the nursery gonna open back up for the season?
Nursery will open up probably at the end of April.
Very nice programs by both of our presenters, and thank you very much for doing it.
Yes,
Thank you very
so
much.
Donna and Monica.
Thank
Very
you again.
enjoyable, and thank you all for joining us this evening. Check the website for the upcoming events, and